Kindy Rockstars. Prepare for a treat, let's meet and greet some bands and singers that are super sweet, making music that's fun for boys and girls. Help them learn about this great big world. Fun for the family, yes it's true, your kids will love it and you will too. Clap and dance and sing aloud, become a part of the Kindy crowd. These songs will make you move your feet and give your ears a great big treat. So settle in, grab your guitars, and let's get to know our Kindy Rockstars. Hello everyone, and welcome to Kindy Rockstars. This is the show that gives you the stories behind the songs from some of the best bands and singers that are making fun, informative, educational, catchy, and occasionally silly songs for children and families. I'm your host, Patrick Adams, and each episode of Kindy Rockstars will feature an artist and a featured song. So let's get to this week's show. Joining me today is Amyliza de Jesus and Marla Vanucci of Light Brigade. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having us.
Right. Well, tell me a little bit about yourselves and tell me about Light Brigade.
So this is Amyliza. So I'm a Nashville native, and I guess our story probably starts, meaning me and Marla, in the early 2000s. I just moved to Chicago. And I was taking some classes at the Old Town School of Folk Music. My background was in classical music, and the Old Town School is like the antithesis of the classical world. And I was just diving into everything that caught my eye in the catalog: guitar lessons, hip hop dance, like different choirs. But anyway, so in this location of the Old Town School, which would have been the Lincoln Square location, in the basement, they would have this community billboard, board where people would post like instruments for sale, looking for band members. And I would just, look at it every week before my lessons. And one week Marla had a flyer and it basically said something along the lines of, hey, these are my favorite artists. If they're yours too, let's get together and see what happens. And this was back in the days where, you had your flyer and at the bottom, you put your phone number a bunch of times and cut out little tabs. So I, ripped off the tab and called the number, and that's how we connected. And so it started off as us basically just doing cover. Like I would go to Marla's, or we would meet up at the Old Town School, and we would do cover songs. And then that morphed into us writing our own songs. And then we started playing some open mics. And then her friend, Lisa Yusk, who's an amazing singer and songwriter as well, she joined us. And then we were performing as a trio. And then we met, who's now my husband, at an open mic. And then we were performing as a band. We were initially the Patterson Project and then Back 40. And yeah, that's how we met and how we started becoming songwriters. And then Andy and I moved away to Austin, Texas. And that was the end of the band, sadly.
Sad.
Yes, it was so sad. But fast forward to now, and Marla and I reconnected after we'd always been in touch throughout the years, but I think reconnected more on that way we had connected initially as far as songwriting after my son was born in 2017. And we just kind of had this idea of writing songs together, but no real timeline. It was like, we should start writing again. So that's kind of how we know each other and how we reconnected. Marla, is there anything you feel like I missed or that is crucial to the story?
Well, I think just, I want to say the first time Amy played one of her original songs for me, when I put that ad up, I just thought I'd have someone fun to hang out with and play music. And then Amy showed up who, played like 6 instruments, and she sat down at the piano and started playing one of her originals, and my mind was just blown. So I've just been really excited for us to get to do music again. I think all these years we've wanted to come back to it. And so it's really great to be doing this together.
Yeah.
Are you both Are you focused right now on making children's music, or is it a combination of things?
Brighter Light Brigade. I guess I should start probably when Marla and I reconnected, because I feel like Brighter Light Brigade's story is just a good life lesson in following your whims and, answering that call and then seeing where that leads. And then that cycle just kind of repeats and repeats. And so Marla and I guess this probably would have been the fall of 2018. And I belong to a songwriting collective called Thinking Outside the Blocks. It's run by Amyliza and Bess Rogers, who are amazing musicians, and they're definitely my songwriting mentors. And they were in the process of starting basically like a online weekend songwriting retreat, and they needed some people to beta test it. And so I volunteered, and then I asked, I was like, I have this friend, Marla Vanucci. She's a great songwriter. We've both been wanting to get back into songwriting, can she join us? And so she did. And that's where the song that we're going to talk about today, Kindness is King, came from. The first part of that workshop was writing a song by yourself. And the afternoon part was doing a co-write. And I'm not usually somebody who likes to co-write, I'm really introverted, and I don't like coming up with ideas on the spot and, having that, that's just not my personality. But this was a great way to challenge that. And I think Allie and Bess, they felt like the best way for me to challenge that would be in a safe space. So I got paired up with Marla. And the prompts were to write for an artist. Actually, I think that was maybe the prompt that we went with, because there was another one, which I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yes. But we went with write for an artist. And I had just seen Mavis Staples perform at the Ryman for her 80th birthday. So I was really inspired. I love Mavis. And, obviously she has the Chicago connection, which Marla and I are connected to as well. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, why don't we write a song for Mavis Staples? And Marla was like, yeah, let's do it. So that's how Kindness is King was born. We, envisioned writing this song for Mavis, which I think challenged us to write outside of our usual styles. I would say my style is more kind of alt country pop, and Marla's tends to be bluesy, also alt country. But because we were thinking this is for Mavis Staples, it really got us outside of our usual, go-tos. And then, at the time, I think because we have sons and the world was already getting to be quite divided, we just wanted to put something, or just write about something that, I don't know, we felt would help us deal with what was going on, and then, help our kids deal with what was going on. So we wrote Kindness is King, which really, like I said, was the songwriting exercise. But after we wrote it and the workshop ended, probably a month and a half later, we were like, maybe we should record this. It feels like this just shouldn't be a songwriting exercise song, that it really should be something that's out there.
Very cool. So Marla, leading up to the point where you put that flyer up, what was your background?
Yeah. Well, I had always been in choir and had tried to take guitar lessons when I was in the 6th grade, unsuccessfully. My fingers hurt too much, and I played a little piano, but I hadn't really had any formal training. And I had thought about maybe studying music in college, and instead went for theater school, but then quickly realized I loved psychology. So I became a psychologist. And, I was missing music. And I also had come to, found the Old Town School as a place where you walk in the first day and everybody's a musician, and it felt really welcoming. I'd always been one of those people who needed to play the song, like every note the way it's supposed to be played. And so it was really a challenge for me to just explore and play different things. And I just, I've always loved singing harmonies and just really wanted to find some people to play with. I didn't have a really big music community at that time because most of my friends weren't musicians. And so, so I just put up that old school flyer with the little tabs. And so we were really mostly writing breakup songs originally.
Yeah.
Someone had come to see us at an open mic and asked us to play at their wedding. And all three of us had some significant stuff going on in our lives, including Lisa, our third singer. And so we said, are you sure? Because really all we play is breakup songs. And actually, I don't think they ended up calling us, but so, the children's music, really, I think Amy was the driver, and she could talk a little bit about her connection with Little Miss Anne. But I think, becoming mothers, I had written a few children's songs after my son was born, but didn't really do anything with them. And, just changes your perspective. And then also both being in mental health, we had thought about, how do we bring our focus on, awareness of one's feelings and being able to express oneself and, helping kids find ways to cope with difficult things. Like, how could we bring that to the music? So those had been kind of the things that we'd been sort of thinking in the back of our heads. And I don't know that we had thought about Kindness is King as a children's song per se. And I think probably most of our music is like family oriented versus kid oriented specifically, maybe with a few exceptions. But that idea of like, how do families cope was really in the back of our head. But I think that the child music influence or the kiddie music, really being involved in that world, really Amy has been the driver for that.
Yeah, tell me about your connection. I've found that the kiddie community is really just an amazing group of people. But how did you connect with Little Miss Anne?
Yeah, so. And this is one of those things where I just feel like it was the universe, like putting it on a platter and saying, here's an opportunity and just do what you want to do with it. But here's an opportunity. So at the time I was, and Marla spoke a little bit about our career background, and I'm a social worker. But I was kind of getting burnt out with it. And so I took a job as a nanny, because I love working with children. And when I nanny, it's funny because people are like, why you're an LCSW, why are you nanny? And I often think of it as like still being a social worker, just having a caseload of one. So, and you can really focus like your resources and like your expertise into this one family. But I worked for this wonderful family, and they really took whatever suggestions I had as far as, community offerings. And I would just, be like, here's something we could do. Would you like us to do it? And one of those things was taking the Wiggle Worms class at Old Town School. So again, here we are connected back to the Old Town School, which really is kind of a magical connector kind of place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. And so we actually had seen Little Miss Anne. So the city of Chicago hosts these, and I don't know now that it's COVID era, but at the time, these weekly called the Juice Box Series concerts. So they would have a lot of different children's artists. Like there was a capoeira class. But anyway, so Little Miss Anne had performed at that, and the little girl I nannied for really loved her. And so when I saw Little Miss Anne taught at the Old Town School, I was like, this is a no-brainer. We should take her class. So that's how I formally met Anne. We both have a shared Filipino heritage. And so I think just naturally after class, we would connect on that and talk about just our shared heritage and common interests. And that led to, I think after class one day, we were just talking and it came up that I'm from Nashville. And she said, does that mean you play instruments? And I said, actually, I did grow up playing piano and violin, singing. And she said, that's funny because my longtime band member who did all those things, she played keyboards, violin, and was my background vocalist. She has moved on to pursue her full-time career more intensely, and I'm looking to fill that position. Do you want to audition? And, I had not been playing music regularly for a while at that point. And I said, it's been a while since I've played, but I'm happy to dust off my instruments. And, I know a lot of the songs since we're taking your class. So yeah, I'd love to audition. And so I auditioned and got the job. And I will say my first Little Miss Anne show, I was just amazed at how different it is from, for example, our Patterson Project Back 40 performances, which were like in smoky bars. And, sometimes, there were times where I feel like we did grab the audience because of our I feel like our 3-part harmonies were the thing that really made us stand out. And in those moments, sometimes we could hush an audience, but for the most part, we were playing for people that weren't paying attention. Whereas this Little Miss Anne show, it was amazing because everyone there was just like all in. And there are kids in the front, the very front of the stage, singing along to every song, like every word to every song, and bouncing up and down. And the families were enjoying it. And I was just looking out into the crowd thinking, one, we are planting seeds. And two, and I had never experienced this before, where it was really a reciprocal experience. We were providing the music that created this space, but then, that reciprocal relationship of getting back what we put into it from the families was just, I remember like getting teary-eyed on stage being like, what is this? I can't, like, what's happening? And so that was I remember that first show really being something that led me to realize that there's a whole different way of sharing music that's out there that I have not yet experienced, and that it's really powerful in this way. And so Anne, it's funny because she would mention to me, most people who are in the kindy world don't go into it seeking to be a kindy artist. It just is something that kind of finds you, and you answer the call, and then you're in. And that's definitely the case for me, and I'd say the case with Marla as well. But after joining the band, I think maybe like a couple months later, Anne asked if I wanted to do a joint album with her. And, I'd never written any children's music, and I let her know that. I was like, I haven't written any kids songs before. A lot of my songs are very like mellow, sad songs, honestly. And she said, well, just give it a try. And we'll see what happens. And I just am so appreciative of her, for one, asking me to join her band, and two, just kind of maybe seeing something in me that I didn't even see. Because once I wrote my first kids song, they just kind of like came. It was like, the floodgates opened, and I was like, maybe I found my genre. So I wrote 4 songs in a month, which is unheard of for me. I would usually write maybe 1 song every 2 years. And all of the songs made it onto our album, Keep On, which again was a joint album with Little Miss Anne. And my name for that album was Amy D. So when Kindness is King was written, and after we had recorded it, we were thinking like, should this be in the kids world? And I think that was the direction we decided, because of us being parents and having kids, and us really wanting to make that bridge for families. And so we got Dean Jones to produce it, and Beth Blends Klukas to promote it. And it was just really exciting for that to be out in the world. And so this is where another kind of like follow your whims, like answer the call comes into play. So we released it, and like, that was kind of that. Marla and I had left it at, this was really fun. We should do this in the future sometime, but with no real timeline. And then maybe like a month or 2 after we released Kindness is King, we got this email from somebody in the music industry who was like, hey, we love Kindness is King, and what's coming down the pike for Brighter Light Brigade? And we were like, well, we've had plans to do something, but just no real timeline just yet. But maybe, you can be our timeline. So that really got the ball rolling for us to think about what we wanted to do. And I know Marla had talked about bringing in kind of that socio-emotional bent to the songwriting. And so, I guess, Marla, do you want to talk more about what's coming next?
Yeah. So it's interesting because, we'd written Kindness is King, and then we had agreed to work on this album this year, and we didn't have any material. And Amy was working on another project, and it just felt like time was pushing and pushing and pushing. And Dean had his own timeline. And what's interesting is, all the time that Amy was working with Anne, I was in a cover band, a 50s, 60s cover band, and it felt like a relief to not have to write anything. I felt like I'd been remarried. I was happy. I didn't have any material. I didn't have anything to talk about anymore. And so I think it's been really great for us both to find our voices as parents, as mothers, as people in healthcare, mental health care. And so this album, it's pretty varied. We had decided to write a few songs, and then the ideas just came out of us. I mean, we were still writing stuff on the airplane for me, in the car for Amy, in the studio. And I don't know that we've perfectly selected what's going to make it yet. But every song has some sort of social emotional component, whether it's about coping with a situation, whether it's about, how to express feelings, whether it's about things that people and families and kids experience, or whether it tells a story where something happened that evokes some type of feelings. Every song has some sort of component like that.
Gotcha. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Kindness is King. Talk about the message in that song. And I got to say, this is one of those topics that both kids and adults really should take to heart. Be kind to each other. There's nothing worth arguing so vehemently about. But what was kind of the impetus behind writing that?
Interestingly, when we were recording the album, COVID struck in the middle. So much of the album was recorded remotely. And Amy sadly lost her mom in the middle of, from when we began, not to COVID, but from when we began recording to the end. And, when we decided to release it was around the election. And like Amy had mentioned, things were so difficult. And the message is really about acceptance and, understanding diversity and, embracing diversity and using diversity as a way for us to sort of come together and, help each other create solutions together. Amy, do you want to add anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because we did, we started this again, like fall of 2018, I believe. And the title came from, that was another part of the songwriting workshop. It was, collect titles during the week that you might want to explore during your co-write. And so Kindness is King was a title I had collected. And when we went with the Mavis prompt, it was like, this just seems like something that Mavis would sing about. So again, like Mavis is our inspiration. And it came together really quickly. And I think, again, we were informed by the world events that were happening at the time. But even with the break, because we had started recording it that fall, and then, my mom got sick and then I had to stop, and then COVID happened, and it just like, it was like, oh, when are we going to, and then I don't even think like getting back to finishing the song really came to us until the election season. And it was like, gosh, I feel like this song really should be out there right now. And so Dean, we just kind of picked up where we left off. And again, all of this was remotely. But even though, a year and a half had passed, it was like the message was even more timely as ever. So it felt really good to release it. We released it on World Kindness Day. And it felt right. And I don't know, we're happy that it's out there.
Yeah.
Fun. Well, let's listen to the song. Here is Kindness is King
Great.
by Brighter Light Brigade.
When you feel the world around you is tumbling down, and you haven't found your shelter, look for my sign, then your time. I'll take your hand, we'll make a stand, don't falter. You know that if you and I only do one thing, let's make a world where kindness is king. We're just as strong as the love that we bring. Let's make a world where kindness is king.
When you see the ones around you, some are your friends, but then the rest your enemies. Look inside, beyond the divide. Open your mind
That was Kindness is King by Brighter Light Brigade. All right, Amy, Marla, tell people where they can stream and download that song and how they can connect with Brighter Light Brigade on social media.
Yeah, so we are, I think on pretty much most of the digital platforms, Spotify, gosh,
Apple
that's
Music.
the main one I use. Yes, Apple Music. Thanks, Marla. We're also, available for purchase on Apple Music and Amazon. We have a Bandcamp page as well. If you want to find us, we have a website, which is brighterlightbrigade.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. And because we're hoping to release, this full Brighter Light Brigade album, hopefully in January, you'll start to see, some updates with that. But we are very excited for the music that's to come too.
We'll also be doing a Kickstarter campaign. We'll hopefully get that going in the next month or two, and we'll have some awesome prizes, Brighter Light Brigade prizes or rewards. So you can find information about that on the Facebook page as well, or the website.
Excellent. Thank you both so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so
thanks
much
for having us.